Hello and welcome to another great, amazing episode of the Out the Box Show. I'm your host, Donald McKinney. Do me a favor, like, subscribe, and share if you're involved with the content and it is to your liking and your pleasure, which I know it will be. Today we have a great, amazing episode and a lot of great things to talk about. So, jumping right into it, the Muscogee Creek Freedmen have won a settlement through the Supreme Court stating that they get all of their tribal rights and they are actually admitted to the Muscogee Creek Nation and have all the rights and liberties that their regular by blood quantum citizens have. So if you don't know what that means, there is a freedman role and then there is a blood quantum role. Basically the Dawes role and then the freedman role, two different roles that they were subjecting people to back in the day. And it's pretty interesting because when you look at it from a perspective of who's really Indian, you have certain groups of people that were darker skinned that were enslaved and were actually at war with the Indians. And then you have people that are considered to be Indians that actually were able to sign the Dawes roll. So it's a very tricky situation when it comes to that. It really kind of blows the mind when one thinks about it in the perspective of who's really who, right? Like, okay, how can you be considered a Native American or an indigenous person if you were able to, well, they call them $5 Indians. So $5 Indians were people who were basically able to spend money to be able to become Indians, so to say, or sign up for the Dawes Roll Commission, right? So please do your history and your information on that because it's very interesting when it comes to the perspective of how you go about becoming a person or not becoming a person. Specifically, a lot of Indians, as you may or may not know, were considered Negro. They literally had their classifications and had a lot of their rights taken. And, I believe it was because what you call the laws of conquest. If you're taking somebody's land, you don't want to enfranchise them and give them the rights to the land and actually have to pay them. But that's a lot of the broken treaties that they signed with Native Americans, Indians, so on and so forth. So there is a great, amazing brother by the name of Demario Solomon Simmons, and he, I think, is the CEO or the head of the Justice for Greenwood Foundation. And in that foundation, they have, what is called the Tulsa Race Riots, which took place in Oklahoma. And what's crazy is that Oklahoma was, before it was considered the state of Oklahoma, it was called Indian Territory. That's where the Trail of Tears and a lot of the Indians from the eastern coast of the United States were sent, through a treaty that they supposedly had with these people. Well, it comes out that in 1921, and when they sent them there through the Trail of Tears, I want to say the 1830s, 1825, 1830 is when the beginning of the Trail of Tears happened. And it went up to 1866 when, people were given their freedom. And, Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, I want to say in 1863. But you have people that were granted citizenship into the different Indian nations and were supposed to be getting the same tribal rights, which were called freedmen. And they have been fighting ever since then to be recognized as this. And Demario Solomon Simmons is a person who, is kind of spearheading, this freedmen case through the Supreme Court. And, the one who was fighting to get, basically black people, melanated people, full tribal recognition, and specifically into the Muscogee Creek Nation of Oklahoma. So they won that and they were granted that. So I want to give a shout out to him and a thank you to him for the hard work, that he's continuing to do. But I also want to dialogue a little bit about how we don't really fully understand the ramifications of what this means. Can it be repealed back? When are they going to start giving black people their fair justice and their fair due? I know that a lot of black people don't fully know their background on where they come from. And it was surprising to find that, freedmen A lot of black people come from the freedmen class of indigenous people that were classified as Indians, but well, they were Indian and indigenous and supposed to be getting certain rights, but the states, through what I believe is called the laws of conquest, chose to classify these people as Negro. So that's something that, the U.S. government and a lot of states omitted, specifically the legal status of black, individuals, black tribal members, Indians, due to the international laws of conquest. You had, for instance, you had people that were considered free people of color. You had people like Benjamin Banneker, Richard Allen, and this is going back to the 1700s and early 1800s. There were a class of people that were considered black people, but they were considered free people of color. Then you had what you call Negro people. So I always wanted to ask, what is the difference between a Negro and a person of color, a free person of color? What's the difference between a Negro and a free person of color in that time, and why did some black people get to be classified as free people of color, and why did other black people get classified as Negro? So something that always kind of stuck with me, and I always wanted to think about, and I always think about it, and I think that's why I like bringing up these topics, because it's hard to talk about these things because from my records and what I'm able to fight, it was a way to kind of subjugate the sovereign indigenous people of the Americas. And it's something that's kind of a legal thing, a legal effort that's still going on to this day because, the United States of America doesn't want to classify millions and millions of black people as indigenous, because if you knew the laws, for instance, one law that sticks out to me that comes to mind for Indians is an Indian non-taxed. If you're Indian, then you don't pay taxes. So, that right there would save and cut off a lot of people's water. A lot of people's light bills and water bills would be cut off because they couldn't pay, just by not taxing the millions and millions of black people in America, or Negro class people in America, now called African American. So yeah, that's definitely something to, look into and do your research on and stuff like that. It's just a whole plethora of broken treaties that, the government has created with, black people, going all the way back into, before slavery and then up into slavery. You had what was called 40 acres and a mule that literally Abraham Lincoln died over. They literally assassinated him, before he could even fully implement these laws and statutes that were passed to help not only Indian freedmen, but other freedmen that were basically prisoners of war that were taken, and just misclassified. So the effect of conquest is something that is something that in international law we need to pay a better, closer attention to. We need to do a better job of understanding fully what it means to be conquested, right? So, for instance, the conquest involves the annexation or control of another entity's territory through war or coercion. So you have ineffective conquest and you have effective conquest. And I believe that why the Americans and why the people are so scared of the conquest laws is because, for instance, the Seminole Indians, they never could conquer. They never conquested these people. They never were able to fully take over the land. They've just kind of through a de facto government status been claiming, oh, well, this state is this, and we're going to do this, and this federal law is that, and stuff like that, redlining, all of these different things that have affected black people, and we never kind of really fully understood, okay, why is this affecting us? What is going on with, why black people are in the position that they're in? And then they like to say, well, white people are poor, you got other people are poor, everybody else is poor, but everybody else doesn't come from the Americas. That's something that we have to really talk about and understand that, okay, if you sent over Europeans, black and white, to fully conquest a people that you never were able to conquer, what does that mean from an international law standpoint? I'll tell you what it means. To have what is called effective conquest, you would have to acquiesce or acquisition of the territory through force allowed by the legal process of subjugation, meaning physical appropriated and legally transferred to the victor. So that to me means that if you have to be able to take the land physically and you have to do it legally. So you have to be able to physically subjugate these people, and then you have to go through a legal means to be able to take the land. Classifying people as Negro. What is a Negro? What is the racial terminology? What is the legal terminology for a Negro? The color Negro, if you don't know, is the Spanish word for black. So if you didn't go through the legal process of ever being able to subjugate these people, and you did, or to my knowledge, they did. You know, that's why so many treaties were written and attached to the Indian tribes. But the Indian tribes, then they excluded, and somehow there were people that were able to get into positions of power to exclude black people from being considered Indian, when the original term for Indian and Negro was synonymous. The original Indians were called Negro. I mean, I can even go back. If you were not able to take away a person's sovereignty legally, if you were not able to physically subjugate these people, and then you start understanding, oh, that's why police will just go up and just shoot a black person, and then they'll make the citizens of that county or state that they shot that person in pay the money, unless you go through the legal parameters of actually suing the actual officer and so on and so forth with other steps. But for the most part, it makes sense now why so many young black men and women have just been flat out murdered and continuously being murdered by police officers. And then they broadcast it on the news because they expect us to tear up the city, burn down stuff, and continuously go through these anarchy type of situations instead of taking the proper legal actions to even get these people off of your land and give them the right to where they can't even pull you over, because legally they don't have a right to. That makes more sense to not even have a legal right to pull me over versus me pulling out my gun and shooting you and killing you, you know. And I'm not advocating for any type of violence here. I'm just saying, if the shoe fits, wear it. And in this case, us being freedmen, us being people that were legally freed, we have, I believe, two options. We can go through the legal parameters of being able to take a stronger stance on the legal process of this country, or we can get back and go back to our own nation and create our own laws, because once again, when you stand together like a closed fist instead of an open hand, I believe that that's more powerful. We pack a stronger punch with a closed fist than an open hand. So us getting back to our indigenous roots and being able to say, hey, you know what? We were here first. This is our land and this is who we are. And claiming that through the different type of freedmen legislations, that is an option too. So you know what? That right there, I'll leave it and I'll let you be the judge. Please comment in the comments. Let me know how you're feeling about it. Once again, my name is Donald McKinney, CEO of FamilyBible.io. Check us out. And this has been another great episode of the Out the Box Show. Hit me up. Till next time. Peace.